is a review on the Nathan Dewey prototype Balisong. Wanted to thank Nathan Dewey for loaning me his prototype so I could review it. Right off the bat, it's a very unique looking Balisong. One thing about Nathan Dewey's designs is they definitely stand out. They have a lot of character. You can tell he has a very unique individual style when he designs his Balisong, and this prototype is no exception. It just has a kind of a cool, more of a, it's hard to explain, but more of a laid back look. It's not rigid. I think his Balisongs, just from the photos I've seen of his other knives, they tend to have a more rounded off look. And, you know, it's kind of unique from Balisongs because a lot of times Balisongs have a very squarish, squared off type of look, and his just look a little bit more rounded, a little more smooth. It's definitely a very unique style on how he builds them. Now, this prototype, he actually plans to make a sprint run of, I think maybe 9 or 10 of these, and he actually wanted me to review it to kind of get a flipper's perspective of how it was designed, how it performs, and he wanted not just myself but the community to kind of weigh in on what they were interested in knowing about the knife and what was important to them, so that when he builds the actual sprint run, he can kind of tailor it to what the community wants. And I think that's pretty cool. I hope that's kind of a ongoing trend from Balisong makers, that they reach out to the community and see what they want. You know, we see actually big manufacturers like Bradley Kershaw that are very receptive to the community's feedback on how Balisongs are built. You know, they listened and they produced accordingly, and I think that's a positive step forward for not just the Balisong community but the knife community in general. So what I'll do is my standard way of reviewing, which is starting from the latch up. Now, he built this as a latchless Balisong. I don't know if the sprint run will have a latch or not, so obviously I won't be talking about the latch. But as a latchless model, it is kind of cool because I haven't flipped a latchless model actually, and it is, I don't know, I mean, there's certain tricks that you can do with a latch that it is nice to have a latch for, but having it latchless does kind of give it I guess a slicker feel. It kind of lets you, to me anyway, it's all perception, but it kind of seems like you can just flow with the knife a little bit better because you don't have a latch getting in the way. Now, as far as the spacers, you're going to notice here, he went with, he just used some standard nuts to space out the handles. But from my understanding, as he's indicated in some of the forums on Jersey Devils and Blade forums, he's going to be using steel spacers. So this is just kind of what he used to, get the knife out and just to function, get into my hands and see if just to get it to work. Now, my first advice to Nathan, well, he already said he was going to use steel spacers. The only thing I would say is when you do use your steel spacers, make sure they weigh a little bit more than what these two nuts weigh. Okay, so I don't know if you have a scale or whatever, but weigh out what these are. I would say if you had 2 more of these nuts, that might be about the right way. Even if you went a little heavier, I think that would be good. The handles are all G10, so that makes for a pretty light and airy feel when you're flipping it. So to compensate for that, you do need a lot of weight at the back end. That was kind of a criticism of the 51. It's pretty much titanium and G10, so it's light. If this knife had just a bit of a heavier spacer, it would be perfect. Kind of like the Basilisk. It's light, but it uses very big metal spacers. So if the weight increased at the end of the handles, this thing would perform a bit better. The handles themselves being all G10, I think that's cool. I know a lot of people, they are still kind of skeptical about all G10 handles. I think G10 is a fine material. There's a lot of knives out there that use all G10 that have a great track record, like the Spyderco Military. That's a tough as nails knife, and that's just all G10. So, as long as it's a good thickness it's a fine material. I mean, this thing is tough. Now the handles, if you notice, I know a lot of people were asking to compare this against the 42. So I got the 42, the 51, the Kimara here, just so we can compare the dimensions a little bit to each knife. The handles of the prototype that Nathan Dewey made are very thick. And the thing about thick handles is when you're manipulating, for twirling, scissoring, chaplains, it's actually kind of a benefit because you have more surface area here to work with. But it does kind of impede on finer manipulation, like when you want to, rotate and do helicopters and just things that require a little bit more control within the handles. A fat handle kind of gets in the way. So I would suggest that the sprint run of this knife be narrowed down a bit. Now, we'll just compare it to the 42 first, just because I think the 42 is like a perfect thickness. So if you look here, here's how it stacks up against the 42. And I think you could, like the basilisk is a little bit thicker than the 42. So you could even go a little thicker than the 42, but just side by side, you can see how much thicker that is. In fact, if you look at that, the 42 comes up to basically the bottom of the opposite handle for the prototype. Here's it against the Kimara. Kind of the same thing, in fact, but it's even, the difference is even greater because, I mean, look at that. I mean, it makes the Kimara look like a little midget Balisong against the 42. You can clearly tell it's a significantly thicker than any of its counterparts here. Here's it against the 51. So I would narrow it down. I'd probably bring it down to probably the thickness of the 42. I'd probably bring it down to that thickness. I think that's an ideal thickness for flipping. The width of the handles, it's also pretty fat, but I didn't really find that to be so much of a problem. I guess it could be trimmed down a hair, but at the same time, you don't want to, I know as a maker, you don't want to sacrifice too much of your own style, so I guess, Nathan's probably going to find a middle ground to maintain his style, but also keep this a very flippable Balisong. But I like the thickness. I thought it was good for, provided good ample surface area for when you're holding it for rollovers and stuff like that. But maybe just narrow it down just a hair to make it a bit more easy to control when flipping. One other thing I just wanted to add in regards to the handles before I forget. Here's the length compared to the Kimara. Here's the length compared to the 42. As you can see, it is quite a bit shorter, probably 3/4 of an inch shorter than the 42, and maybe a 1/4 of an inch or so compared to the Kimara. I would lengthen that out a little bit, maybe bring it out to here, maybe bring it out to about where the 42 is. I think that's the ideal length. So if you just took this and kind of stretched it out, thinned it out, narrowed it out just a little bit, and then put heavy spacers, I think that would make for an even better flipper. As far as the pivots, I think he's also going to go with something that's going to be flush, a little bit more flush rather than sticking out. As you can see, he's probably going to go with something, probably going to countersink these a little bit, which I think would look a bit nicer. They didn't really get in the way of flipping, but I think it would definitely look a little bit nicer. Spacers also he's going to upgrade. Right now he's just using some standard washers that he had available, but he said he was going to upgrade that as well. Tank pins, he did a great job. I thought they functioned very well. Seemed like they were put into the knife very sturdily. I would keep the same diameter of the tank pin. Just comparing it to the Kimara and the 42, it's a little bit beefier. That's a good thing, in my opinion. It's a little bit more durable. Tank pins get a lot of abuse, so I would keep it about the same. And as far as the way it pivots, there's a decent amount of play, but that's about the amount of play that I'm used to. I guess it could be a little tighter. I tried tightening a little bit, didn't really seem to want to budge, so I didn't mess with it too much, but I'm sure once he upgrades the pivot system, it'll be a little bit more adjustable. But overall, it flowed pretty well for flipping. Onto the blade, Nathan did a full flat grind for this blade, and it came out very sharp. As you can see, I just got done with a little flipping session and tore me up pretty bad. You know, it came razor sharp. So he definitely knows how to get it sharp. I think when he gets better at his grinds, it would be interesting to see some different styles. Maybe not full flat, but just some different type of grind patterns. But this is cool. It's kind of a big fat Bowie style blade. You know, that's a cool looking blade. I like that a lot. And the spine here is rounded off just a little bit. Feels pretty cool. I like it a lot. So all in all, I think it's a cool knife. You know, I like the way it looks. It flipped well. When I did flip it, I thought it was more than capable of doing a lot of tricks, and I thought it performed pretty well. The only thing is the short and fat handles was a bit tough to get used to, and I really do think if they were just a little bit longer, a little bit narrower, it would have performed a little bit better. And if it just had a little bit more weight in the end. I just found that on certain you know, zero gravity transfers, certain things like index rolls, the knife didn't quite have enough momentum at times, so it would want to fly off the finger. But I could do pretty much everything with this knife. It just took a little bit more getting used to. Aerials, this thing is pretty nice. I don't know what it is, maybe just because of the fat handles, but it just seemed very predictable, the way it rotated and the way in which you could catch it. Aerials, it performed pretty well. So that was nice. The blade is pretty well balanced. So overall, I liked it as a flipper. So I really hope I hope Nathan has a lot of success with his sprint run. I hope this is just the first of many that we see coming from him. I've seen some of his work after even this knife, and it just seems like he's getting better and better. All in all, very fun experience flipping this knife. Again, thank you, Nathan, for loaning me the knife, and I hope that answers a lot of the people's questions about the knife. And it looks like there's a lot of interest already in it, so I hope it's a great success. And thanks for watching.